This is America's Mayor live from Manchester, New Hampshire, although over my shoulder is my favorite 4th of July scene. Maybe not my favorite. I think it's in Washington, D.C., actually. But I'm very committed to this one because I was instrumental in helping to put on that display for 8 years. That's the Macy's fireworks that has been going on for, I don't know, hundreds of years on the East River, broadcast nationally on one of the communist networks. I've forgotten which one. It's a beautiful display. I've seen it from all different angles, both as the mayor, the U.S. attorney, private citizen, father bringing his children, friend bringing other people's children, mayor policing it when there were threats of terrorism, mayor policing it when we decided we were going to reduce the number of fireworks, illegal fireworks in the city, because I was told, and I was really upbraided by the chief of emergency medicine at Bellevue, Dr. Scalia, same name as this, who told me, Mayor, you're doing such a great job bringing down crime. What about all those kids on July 4th that come in with the fingers blown off and the eyes? He said, it's our worst day of the year because nobody here does anything about illegal fireworks. Nothing wrong with those fireworks. Those are police. Those are professional. Those are carefully watched. But people are blowing them off all over the place, and they're blowing their kids' fingers off, their eyes off, and occasionally we get a fatality. I said, ain't gonna happen no more, doctor. He said, yeah, but nobody wants to do it because they don't have the guts to go after Gotti. Well, that's all I had to hear, right? First one we eliminated was Gotti. Got to go right for the top. You go cut the head off right away. Same thing in a war, right? You go right for the top. So first year, no Gotti fireworks. We closed them down. We never had them again. Said it couldn't be done. I got it done. The first year, we got most of them done. And then the second year, the rest, and terrible, terrible protests and all the kids yelling and screaming. And my reward, ridiculed by the newspaper, is ridiculed by everyone except Dr. Scalia, who said, gee, Mayor, we had nobody who lost their digits this year. Wow. That's all I needed. You got to understand me. That's all I needed.
Just for the record, at the time, the media was defending John Gotti and his fireworks.
No. Gotti, they weren't defending Gotti. They were saying, "Oh, I was being like a squirrel."
Yeah, I know. I'm half in jest, right? Any chance to take a shot?
If you don't have responsibility for people's lives, it's easy to say that stuff. What you find out if you're a mayor and you're a serious one is the lives of people are in your hands, and that's what comes first, not the silly media. And not the some things you can explain. You try to explain everything, and when you can't, you look yourself in the mirror and you say, "Is this right or wrong?"
Did you
this was right?
You got some blowback. Some people, as you said,
they calmed down. After 3 years, they forgot it. First 2 years, I was terrible. The Asian community came after me because they told me it was religious. I said, "Well, that's good. Let's then get a permit."
You can get a permit.
We get a permit, but then you have to. Costs money when you get a permit. You got to have the right person there. You have to have a person there who can protect people. These are offensive weapons. they kill people. Right? They're beautiful when they're done right, under control. They're terrible when they're done by a bunch of yahoos who are half drunk. The Gotti fireworks were probably not dangerous. The Gotti fireworks were a demonstration of how he was more powerful than the city. Which,
before you, were his fireworks better than the city's?
No.
He never competed.
No, they weren't like this. I mean, these fireworks are
$1 million fireworks. That's Macy's right there.
Yeah, and
that's the power of Macy's.
And they do it with beautiful music, and they do it with great fanfare and acts. And no, it wasn't that. It was more an act of defiance, saying, "Screw you, city. We run. This is our neighborhood. It doesn't belong to the city of New York. This is our neighborhood. This is just like Eastern Europe or East Germany. We run it, and we decide who lives and dies here, which they did. That's what the Mafia did, but not after I was U.S. attorney and mayor. A lot of the things I did as U.S. attorney, I had to carry out as mayor to complete them, like the moving them out of private sanitation and moving them out of the Fulton Fish Market, but some things I was able to accomplish as U.S. attorney, getting them out of the Teamsters Union. But when I think of the 4th of July, I mean, that is, of course, as a New Yorker, which is what I am, for better or for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. I don't know about until death. But in any event, this is a beautiful picture of New York, isn't it? Isn't it beautiful? Empire State Building, red, white, and blue.
For
People celebrating and loving the greatest country on earth, showing unabashed, unconditional love for the greatest country on earth. And I say unconditional with a condition. Of course, we're human and we need improvement all the time, which is why we have always had the concept, those of us who study the Constitution, study our history, and are honest about it, that when we were never perfect, we did terrible things like other human beings did. It's possible we weren't as bad. Possible in some areas we might have been worse. I don't know. I do know the one thing we let everyone in is always striving to be a more perfect union. We always led people in reform. We were constantly aided by a group of people of high morals who fought very hard for a better America. Goes back to the day the Pilgrims arrived, who, for whatever other failings they had, found slavery to be completely inconsistent with their view of religion and their view of humanity. And that's why a place like New England and a place like the northeastern part of the United States was very heavily anti-slavery. And why, when you ended up with a civil war, they're the ones who gave up their young men to free Black people. Not something that the racists of today want to hear, that the Civil War was won by the sacrifice of white, young American men. Yes, Black men participated. They weren't allowed to participate to the degree they probably would have. No criticism of them. To the extent they did participate, from what we can tell, they participated mightily and heroically and well, but not in sufficient numbers to make any difference. So here is a fact. Take this one, Hannah Communist, and stick it up your you-know-what. That's the one who wrote 1619. The war between the states would not have been won without the sacrifice of young white American men who fought for Lincoln against other young white American men, some of whom fought for slavery in the South, and some of whom fought for, they didn't know what, because their father told them to, because their community told them to, because they were fed propaganda and lies about Lincoln, as happens in every war. So when we reflect on the 4th of July, the real reflection should be on the Declaration of Independence. That's the day for the Declaration, isn't it? It's the day for the great document written by the great American Thomas Jefferson, who's been subjected to the worst kinds of calumnies you can possibly imagine, because the man wasn't perfect. He couldn't overcome all of the pressures of his day and misconceptions of his day, just like almost everyone except Jesus. But then on the other side of it, this is the man who wrote the words that drove independence for everyone, wrote the words that became the poison pill for slavery. You could not have written the Declaration of Independence and reflected on it for too long to realize that slavery was inconsistent with the principles upon which Jefferson premised our new republic. All men are created equal. And when they said men, they meant women. They hadn't come to the concept yet that women should or wanted to or fought for or should have or it was right or it was unfair not to have them participate in government. But women did participate in large parts of American colonial life. I guess Mrs. Adams being the primary great colonial woman, and her writings to both her husband and her fostering of the friendship between Adams and Jefferson is just one of the great contributions to American history. So as we reflect on the things that we did wrong, please let's give equal reflection to the things we did right, which is considerably greater. Witness the fact that so many people want to come here and no place else. So celebrate America on July 4th. Celebrate the people that brought us independence. Recognize their frailty. Recognize their humanity. Recognize they weren't much different than you. They were human. They committed sins. Their sins might be different than ours because they lived in a different world with different assumptions and different thoughts. But respect the fact that they struggled against it. They all did. Almost all of them struggled against slavery. The ones who came out against it and the ones who ultimately opted for it because they didn't think it was time to overcome it. But they built in the distinct possibility that it was going to happen. Jefferson knew it was going to happen. He said he feared the day that these people who have been held in bondage would find out what really happened to them. And he had every right to say that because it was a horrible thing that was done. But it was also a great thing that it was overcome. And the sacrifice of people to do that was unbelievable. So 4th of July, Declaration of Independence, without any doubt, the document that has led to liberation of more people than any singular document ever written by anyone. And it was written by Thomas Jefferson, whose statue they want to tear down. Ignorant, hateful. Getting people to hate their country. That's a communist plot. Getting people to hate America. And tell me you're not getting people to hate America when our president says that Americans are systemically racist. To be systemically racist means that most of us are racist, the overwhelming majority. And a country that is made up of an overwhelming majority of people who are racist is an evil country. Now, I think that it's just the opposite. The vast majority of Americans are not racist. The vast majority of Americans would like to believe that we have to accomplish what Martin Luther King set out. The people are judged by not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And we took a big step in that direction yesterday, which Biden attacked bitterly and in a way to undermine the credibility of our institutions, which if Trump did something like that, they'd be screaming for his impeachment. When he said the court is not normal. What's abnormal about the court? The person who's not normal is Bozo in the White House. I mean, he is literally falling apart before our eyes. He is now going around the country proclaiming the success of Bidenomics. He is saying that the U.S. has the highest economic growth rate, leading the world economy since the pandemic. Now, this must be a list that he gets at the nursing home, because it's not a list that comes from any place like the International Monetary Fund, which lists almost everybody ahead of us, like India and China way, way ahead of us. We're somewhere near the middle. Our U.S. growth rate was 1.3%, which is below the 3.3% average annual growth rate since 1948. In other words, if we had an average growth rate, it would have been 3.13%. So we were considerably below that at 1.3%. And much of the growth really comes from the turning back of the pandemic, where everything was stopped. So these are the kinds of things that he says that the press just writes it and don't point out. If you take a look at the list of countries with regard to growth rate, we are hardly leading the world economy, and we are way behind us, America. Like, instead of 3.13%, we're at 1.3%. The other thing is the mistakes are now, I don't know if they're being covered more or they're getting worse. But if I'm not mistaken, in the last couple of days, he's twice made the mistake of saying that Russia is fighting with Iraq. I mean, this is a war that he has to make critical decisions about, and he gets confused about the country that's involved in the war. And he doesn't have dementia. And we should have a president that has dementia. How do we ever become so weak, so corrupt, that we could cover up something like that? In his interview with Nicole Wallace, which I don't know who was more pathetic, him or her. I mean, she acted like a silly child, giggling and laughing, and maybe she's hanging out with Kamala Harris. I don't know. But do we have some of that interview that we could play for them? Now, I'd like to see which parts we're playing so I can comment on them. I mean, there are several parts of it that were quite astounding. It almost appeared as if she was, remember when Matthew said when Obama got elected, he got a tingle up his leg. She looked like she was getting tingles here, that she was so proud and happy to have him there. I mean, this will be the most unsuccessful president in our history. He's had more people killed than any American president.
So we'll play. So, Mayor, we have two clips here. I guess we'll start in order. We'll play first the clip of him. We'll play the first clip where the host, Nicole Wallace, former Republican,
former aide to John McCain, who has become an almost unexplainable, silly person.
That's exactly right. No ideals. Just she wanted to be on TV. She wanted to be on TV.
I don't know how she expects people to take her seriously when she is interviewing a president who's in the middle of all these controversies, evidence of being involved in the most massive criminal conspiracy in American history. And she asks him these buffoon kinds of questions that, I mean, a fifth grader would have done better. It sounds like I mean, she isn't. She's a grown woman, but she sounds like a little girl, a silly little girl.
Can we play it?
Yeah.
Chicago. And all of that just since Saturday. Without further ado, the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is very exciting for us.
Exciting for me.
You said today, and I know that you have a lot of power, but I can't imagine you manufactured the breaking news about the court.
So we're going to play it again. We'll play it one more time for people.
Chicago. And all of that just since Saturday. Without further ado, the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is very exciting for us.
Exciting for me.
You said today, and I know that you have a lot of power, but I can't imagine you manufactured the breaking news about the court.
You're back.
Well, now that was about as silly a question as you can get, right? I mean, first of all, she's very excited that he's there. Was she ever very excited when Trump appeared?
No, they got very stone-faced, right? And they really got on their game. Very serious.
He appeared. I mean, I'd be very excited that he appeared after a week or two of evidence coming out that he took $31 million in bribes. I think I would have felt compelled as an honest journalist to ask him if he was sitting with his son when his son engaged in extortion with the Red Chinese to try to grab 10 million that resulted in 100 million coming the next day and 5 million 3 days later, in which Joe shared a large portion of it. I think I would have asked him how much he shared in that portion. And if he said, I wasn't sitting with him, I said, did you know he was in the house that day? Because there are pictures of him in the house. And then I would have said to him, are you aware that it is quite possible that these investigators have metadata? And for example, Mr. President, did you have your cell phone with you that day? Because if you did, and you were sitting next to your son, they can place you next to your son when your son was using language that comes right out of organized crime to shake down a Red Chinese. And if you weren't there, Mr. President, were you aware of the fact that he was shaking down the Red Chinese? And when your son said that you got half of all of his income, was your son lying? Was he not telling the truth about 30 years of activity? Was that intended to falsely incriminate you in a massive crime? And when your son said that he had to pay for all the expenses of the family, was that also a blatant lie from the person you describe as the most intelligent person you've ever met and the person you're the most proud of, a person who accuses you of maybe one of the biggest bribery schemes in the country? Do you still feel that same way about him? I know he's your son, but what he's accusing you of goes beyond relationships. It goes beyond family. It has to do with the national security of our great country that we all love. I mean, after all, you weren't doing business with a benign country. He was doing business with our biggest enemy. Mr. President, what do you think would have happened to, what do you think would have happened to President Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Reagan, if their children were getting $5-10 million from Red Russia? I think they'd be in jail rather than traveling around and going to White House parties with you. And the fact that you have him traveling around, does that kind of indicate that you're colluding with him? Oh, and by the way, let me play this little tape of you discussing your son's foreign business with him, because haven't you said numerous times that you never discussed his foreign business? I'd like you to listen to this tape and see if that's your voice. That's what a reporter would do who had integrity. I submit that's what a reporter would do if they were a loyal American. Because what he did is treason. He sold out our country. It is a legitimate question to ask him, is that his voice on the voicemail to his son indicating that he had full knowledge of his foreign dealings in China? Play the tape. What was it instead? That could have been, they could have done a better, he could have done a better interview on Sesame Street. That was the silliest. Are they really going to, what communist network is she on? CNN or MSNBC?
MSNBC. Mayor, when she reacts the way she did to President Joe Biden being on stage, is that, and what's two questions? Is she acting or is she genuinely giddy? And two, what would be worse? What do you think? Some of these media.
Let's look at it again. Let's take a look and see if we think she's legit.
Let's roll the tape.
She's really having a tingle up her leg, or she's acting.
Chicago. And all of that just since Saturday. Without further ado, the 46th president of the United States, Joe Biden, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is very exciting for us.
Exciting for me.
You said today, and I know that you have a lot of power, but I can't imagine you manufactured the breaking news about the court.
It sounded legit to me. It sounds like she's in a state of high excitement. A silly, childish, high excitement, like Matthew's thrill going up his leg. That's what it sounds like. Or she's pretending that, and why you'd want to pretend that and make yourself into a blithering fool, I don't know. But more importantly, why you can't perform your role as an American citizen and ask a man who is seriously now involved in, a mountain of facts indicating that he sold out his country to Red China. You don't ask the key questions about that. You've got a tape recording of him that proves that he's lying about not knowing about China. He's on tape leaving a voice message for his son, indicating he read the New York Times article that described all the dealings in China. Ask him if that's his voice. Does he think that it's doctored? Does he remember it? What asking him about why he keeps referring to the war as a war in Iraq? Or ask him why does he keep referring to giving his uncle the congressional medal? I'm sorry, the Purple Heart in the White House after he was vice president, when his uncle was dead for 7 years before he was in the White House. There's no record of his son getting of his uncle getting the Purple Heart. Now, could he produce the record? I mean, he is the president after all, and he literally stole classified information. One would think that he could put his hands on this Purple Heart that his uncle won and that he gave to him personally 7 years after he was dead. He could be asked, has he now informed himself that Franklin Roosevelt, he didn't see Franklin Roosevelt on television because Franklin Roosevelt was dead before there was a television. I mean, the man had to be challenged for the good of the American people. This isn't a game, silly girl. It isn't a game. You acted like a silly girl. I know you'll get real insulted that I used the word girl. You play that again and you tell me you don't sound like a silly girl. I'd leave that to people to decide. You were actually giggling. You were giggling. What the hell's that about? What happened to you? What happened to you? Don't you care about this country? Don't you care that this country is being thought of all over the world as a corrupt country because it has a corrupt president that it does nothing about? Don't you care about this country? It's thought of as a country that can't provide any leadership because its president can't seem to be able to get off a stage in an orderly way or remember who we're at war with. Well, it looks like this investigation is going to move forward. The GOP is going to now seek an interview, first private and then, I'm sure public, with Weiss. Weiss is the U.S. attorney in Delaware, the one who is constantly mentioned as the one who is constantly mentioned as the here we go. That was for Flag Day. Wasn't that one nice for Flag Day? I think you would like that also. We have some really nice. We have some really, really nice patriotic.
That's right.
Patriotic music and patriotic things that we can put up for everyone. It's really quite nice. There's another one. There's another nice scene.
Click on it again so we can just click on the screen again.
Mm-hmm.
So get rid of the background. Nope, click on it. And then click on it again. Get rid of that back. Click on the middle of the screen. Click it. No, click it hard, kind of. Not hard. Sorry, you get right touch. It's got to be the right touch. Ah, there we go, Mayor.
Look at that. Isn't that nice? So Hunter is going to allow some of his painting money to go to his child.
Well, isn't that nice?
Navy. Cutest little girl, by the way. But he has not yet met her. You find that strange, Ted, that he's not met her?
That's
And you also find it strange
unconscionable.
that they won't allow her to use the Biden name. Half of her genetic makeup is Biden. Why would they deprive her of the Biden name? Because the son and the woman made a mistake. It's not the child's fault.
Mayor, I don't know if there's anything that makes me more, that gets a real.
Do I overreact to that?
You don't.
In saying he's an evil man?
I think evil. I don't like using the word evil, but I think this might be a place, Mayor, where yes, right. I don't know how less human can you be to reject your, let's especially with he's got the reason. I was adopted, Mayor. You know that. I don't know my birth parents. Chances are they didn't have the.
Well, you don't know.
It doesn't. We don't. Let's not go there. With Joe Biden, we know he has the resources. He has the ability to take care of this kid, or to at least acknowledge it. You're the president of the United States. At least they put you in office. Mayor, all right, I'll let you talk on this. It is maybe the saddest thing.
I guess he would have supported killing the child as in the 7th, 8th, or 9th month, because he's become a supporter of the latest term abortion. Or maybe he's angry that she wasn't destroyed. But you know what it is. It affects him politically, and the child doesn't matter if it affects him politically. Nothing matters if it affects him politically.
By the way, Mayor, don't you think politically it'd look better if Joe came in and kind of say, even if Hunter didn't want, what if he came in and, I don't want to say save the day, right? But even if it was fake, I'm just surprised they don't do something just to, I don't know, just seems like an awful thing to do, and also just a politically stupid thing to do. There's clearly something there where, I don't know, Mayor, I have a feeling you would handle it differently.
The family, not just Joe, is a disgrace to the United States of America.
What would you do, Mayor? And look, this would never happen with Andrew. Of course not.
It can happen to anybody. I'm not trying to be holier than thou.
What would you do, though, as the grandfather?
What would you do?
If
I embrace the child.
Yes, right? Of course. If I was broke, I would do that.
You would,
let alone president of the United States.
Call London and say, I'm not being judgmental. No point in being judgmental now. But there is a child to be thought of, and that's where our focus should be. Our focus should be to try to create the most normal, the most healthy environment for this beautiful young child, so she has every possibility to be successful in life. I mean, you feel that for any child, not even your own blood. But I mean, this is not only casting her aside, unless you're really as dumb as people say Joe is. You've got to realize that you're doing terrible psychological damage to her. I mean, if you don't realize that, there's something seriously wrong with you. I guess the guy that's really in the crosshairs here is Garland, where the testimony is pretty much directly contradictory between Weiss and him. Although there is a way out, I won't give it to them. I can see a sneaky way out that I don't think would be credible, but I have a feeling they're going to take it because I've gotten to know them well now. I don't want to give them a hint as to what kind of lies they should tell to squeeze around this. I don't think it'll work anyway. But I have a feeling that we're going to get a very disingenuous kind of response from that other master criminal, Garland, who once was a judge. And guy, what a disgrace. What a disgrace. The whole administration is a disgrace. But beyond being a disgrace, I don't know if you realize the damage that it does to the United States to have this family there and every day seeing him going deeper and deeper into the hole of dementia, and at the same time hearing more and more evidence about how much money he took illegally. And then it's not just, without motive, and it's money from our enemies. And then you see the quid pro quo. You see the irrational decisions that he's made in favor of China. This is hurting not just his family and the Democrat Party. This is hurting the country we love. So yesterday, the Supreme Court did what hardly was a surprise. The left wing is acting like this is a big, big surprise that with a 6-3 court, the idea that you could reject people based on race is constitutional, because other people were rejected by race many, many years ago. Now, what possible justification is there to discriminate against, say, an Asian American seeking entry into Harvard because 40, 50, 100 years ago, it was discrimination against Black people? Or for that matter, Harvard kept out Jewish people, kept out Catholics for a long period of time.
Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, just
Harvard. Wow.
Harvard kept out Jewish people for a long period of time.
And Catholics?
You got it. You go back to when Kennedy's father got into Harvard. He was one of the first Irish Catholics to be able to get in. That was, I guess, a little after the turn of the century.
Did you feel, well, topic for another time, but I am curious, growing up, if you felt like a minority as a Catholic. I know it's a different time period.
No, I didn't feel like a minority. I did feel a certain level of prejudice against Italian Americans.
Italian Americans. Okay.
I did feel a certain, but not of the same level that we're talking about. So I would not want to.
You're not equating the two, and I'm
not
of course
equating it to the kind of prejudice that was leveled against Blacks or Jews. But now, if we go back to the last century, if we go back to the 17th century, Italians were heavily persecuted. In fact, the second largest group of people that were hung and illegally, who were strung up by the Ku Klux Klan were Italian Americans. I mean, they have gone through some very, very heavy discrimination to the point of being killed, and were not accepted in America very easily. They went through, 40, 50 years of that. And then they went through a hangover period of being constantly assailed as being Mafia, when in fact, the Mafia never made up more than about 2% of Italian Americans. And of course, they existed. No one knew that better than I did. There were Italian Americans who made it worse, like a lot of these people now who are reverse racists, because they would stupidly say the Mafia doesn't exist. I wrote articles then and gave speeches saying the best way to deal with this is to say, you're damn right the Mafia exists, and you're damn right it's made up of Italian Americans. But most of us find them to be a bunch of animals, and we're going to do everything we can to get rid of them, and we'll see if we can lead the charge. That's what I'd like to see people say about downtown Chicago. They're killing African-American kids left and right, and Black Lives Matter only cares about the one every couple of years that gets killed by a cop that they can exploit and make money on and then steal the money. And then the African-American politicians do nothing about the conditions of Chicago. If they did, they wouldn't be that way. Chicago has been in Democrat hands for 55 years, and every weekend it's the shooting field. And it doesn't stop, and it gets worse, and the present mayor is worse than the last one. And they continue to vote Democrat because they're in a certain form of slavery to the Democratic Party right now. Democratic Party has always been the party of slavery. It had a little exodus from it for a while, but it's back there now. And what it does is it enslaves poor people, which I think is part of the reasons why they bring in so many illegals, because there's no other good reason for it. So this decision by the court is almost self-evident application of the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution, which says you can't discriminate based on race. Well, white is a race. Asian American is an ethnic group. You also can't discriminate based on an ethnic group. And they were heavily discriminated against. Blacks with considerably less objective qualifications were selected. In fact, where you level off at equal qualifications, Blacks were selected over Asian Americans 9-1. Wow. That's discrimination. Now, this is supposed to be, according to Biden, do we have a tape or a recital of his saying that this is not a normal court, Ted? I don't know that we do. I don't know if
That's a longer, the end of the clip here. It's at the end of this clip here.
I mean, that's a very that should be a very disturbing statement for people who say, "Oh, Biden, Trump didn't respect the Constitution, and Trump didn't respect constitutional decisions." And to say the court isn't normal because it disagrees, what's abnormal about the court? I mean, where does that come from? Abnormal. I mean, the only most abnormal thing in Washington is him and his administration. I mean, I don't know. I don't think any of them took showers with their daughter. That's abnormal. I don't know if he did, but it's alleged that he did. I sure know he didn't seem to care that his son was a great menace to his grandchildren because his son told him he didn't do anything about it. I got that one in the hard drive.
Well, Mayor, should we take a quick break?
Yeah, I would like to point out, though, that here's the phoniness of this. As you listen to the phony, dishonest American news media over this 4th of July weekend, and they act like this was some big, tremendous change made in America that only abnormal people would agree with, I bet you're going to be surprised because you probably don't remember 9 states have already banned race as a consideration in admissions. 9 states. Now, let me tell you who the 9 states are. Oklahoma, Michigan, Texas, Florida, New Hampshire, and California. Do you know how long ago California banned it? In 1996. This has been a majority view of the American people, that including a number of Blacks and Hispanics, for about 3 decades. The court is just catching up on what the American people believe, that it is fundamentally unfair to put a Black ahead of an Asian because one person is Black and the other is Asian, and the Asian is considerably better qualified.
Mayor, it's literally discriminating based off of race.
But the point that I'm making is this is not some unusual decision of the Supreme Court. The voters of 9 states have already come to that conclusion. So if I give you polls, the polls are up around 70%. So the people that are abnormal, if we're talking about the opinion of the American people, are the abnormal people that sit in the White House and the ones who sit in Democratic seats in the House and Senate. They're the ones who are against American public opinion on this issue and advocate for something that's completely indefensible, which is saying to an Asian American who's considerably better qualified to go to Harvard Law School that you can't go because you're Asian. Sorry.
I don't even want to start with.
So now there's an article in the Wall Street Journal saying that since these states and other states have also done similar kinds of prohibitions on racial discrimination, so this is largely accepted in the United States among 70% of Americans, like the sensible ones, rather than the out of control, crazy, racist progressives, like our president. So they have tried other ways to see if they can jigger things around. They said, why don't we do this? Why don't we take poor people? Because we'll get all the Blacks and Hispanics that way. Why do you think that didn't work, Ted? When they said, we're going to take poor people.
Gee, I wonder.
Because there are more poor white people than Black people. Jerks.
Literally by sheer number.
So they ended up with more white people than Black people. These are the people running Harvard, the University of California.
It's so interesting, right, Mayor? How, I mean, I get it, right? Where the idea behind affirmative action.
How about improving the education in grammar schools so that black kids can compete and win on the same plane as white kids, and get rid of the damn teachers union that has prevented that for 30 to 40 years because it is an operative of the world communist movement. And it wants this. It wants this. Racial tension, racial divide has substituted for communists for the last 40 years
Bingo.
as class. And
Yes.
if you know
Yes.
anything about Marx's critical theory, it was a division that you would drive to create a communist world is class. And a number of communist scholars, including an Italian named Gramsci, came to the conclusion that it's not going to work in America because we don't have those kinds of really dramatic class distinctions, but we sure can exploit the race distinctions. And they have, and they've worked it. And you end up with now the progressives going around dominating the media, dominating Hollywood, dominating the elite against 70% of the American people and our Supreme Court and our Constitution. And here's the tragedy, and several very wise individuals have pointed this out. This isn't the end of it. You don't think that Harvard and University of North Carolina and all aren't going to cheat? I mean, how about we do a real investigation of how much money they've taken from China?
That's a good question.
And
now that's something that needs.
Or how much money they take for legacies and stuff like that. I mean, we're not talking about people I'd bet on. So why don't we take a short break and have Kirk give us some wisdom about how we can prepare ourselves for Bidenomics, which is a pure, absolute disaster and another figment of his demented mind. Ted, did we find the faith and family, freedom and finance, four things that we would do anything to protect? I trust the team at Kirk Elliott, PhD, Private Advisors, with providing the advice and sound strategies to take advantage of the inflationary pressures, the high interest rates, and the international challenges we face today. The Kirk Elliott team, with over 29 years of experience, shares our values and believes in people over profit. They can help you protect your finances from the big government policies that are out of our control. So what's in our control? The decision to act or not to act is within our control. I encourage you to act. Call Kirk Elliott, PhD, Private Advisors today. Start working with a team that will help you protect your retirement assets with gold and silver while sharing your desire to protect your faith, family, and freedom. Call them today, 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900, and tell them Rudy sent you. Or simply fill out a request for a free consultation at kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy.
Yeah, here, give it to me and I'll do it.
Well, we are now going to try to find something which I think you're going to find very, very disturbing, but it shows that this whole race thing has to be put on a sensible way in which it can be discussed, because there has been a tremendous amount of progress made in race relations. When Donald Trump was president, among other things, African Americans reached levels of prosperity that they hadn't reached before. And I'm not talking about the large number of already successful upper middle class, rich and middle class African Americans who made it long before Donald Trump or anybody else. I'm talking about the poorer ones that have been left behind, because you look at statistics like highest wages for African Americans in the history of America, lowest number of unemployed, and highest wage growth.
Here's the story you wanted.
Now, this is precisely what Democrats had been promising for years and not delivering. Now we have this reparations movement, like this affirmative action, intended to divide us in half. The idiot governor in California, who is a petty dictator, Newsom, and a strange individual, has opened it all up to what Democrats always do, because they can't decide, because they're too pudding-headed to really decide anything. He put it up for a commission, and now he's got himself in a real box because they want to give every black person in California $1.2 million, which means it comes out of the citizens of California, very few of whom had anything. Well, none of them had anything directly to do with slavery. It's too damn long ago, and very few of them even had ancestors who did. And California, by the way, wasn't a slave state, but they want to give away all this money. So they had one of their final meetings, and this is the level of discourse and intellectual consideration of this situation. And we'll see if we can get this going.
When was the last time you did a proper cleanse of your intestines?
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! We're getting the wrong thing here, Ted. So we'll have to get the right one. Why don't you work on it and see if we can get the right one? And we'll see if we can get a call in before we do that.
All right.
People getting ready for the 4th?
Let's go to the comment section, Mayor. And here you go. Take it here. Hand me the screen. Hand me that. You want me to play this?
Yeah. I want to see if we can get it.
What were you trying to play? What are you trying to play?
So somebody's trying to find us. Our number is 1-646-573-5177. You get on and
We lost this page. You reading the comments, Mayor?
I am reading the comments, but some of them. Father Pavone paid with fireworks in Florida and supported this mayor insofar as getting a pro-life president. Some gentleman named Bill S. is reporting that his intestines are fine. Well, that's nice. Good, Bill. I'm glad to hear that.
You want me to play this video?
And Sully Bach says I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, born on the 4th of July, which, by the way, so was George Steinbrenner, if you do want to know. If some other people. There's a gentleman or a woman, I guess a woman, that is talking about Obama and the damage Obama did to the country. Carol is late to the party, but she loves us.
Do you want to play this, Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
You want to play it? I'm playing it now.
This is the last meeting of the reparations.
They gave us you guilty. We in 1619, we was eating foo-foo. You kidnapped us, put a hate crime on us. That was the first one. Then you came here with all the other atrocities. When you brought us here, you raped our men, women, and kids. So therefore, you married us. Don't treat us like no cheap piece of meat. So therefore, our last name is American. So now it's the time for a divorce. What do you get in divorce? You get half the money, half the land, alimony, child support, attorney fees, and everything else. So that's what we want. Answer my question. What do we want? When? What do we want? When? What do we want? When? What do we want?
Well, the gentleman was first gentleman was Reggie Romaine, and he believes that African Americans should get half of America after the divorce because they were kidnapped, they were raped, and therefore we marry them. And when you get a divorce, you get half the money. The logic, I mean, doesn't really follow, but nothing about this is logical. The 9-member panel that this is considering this being their last, as you can see, very thoughtful and very carefully debated session. It's already come up with a sort of suggestion that there should be about 1.2 million for every Black person in California.
How did they come up with that number, Mayor?
Now, Gavin Newsom should be removed from office for just starting this. I mean, you're just causing trouble. You're just causing further racial division. You're creating opportunities for racial hucksters like that Reggie Romaine to get up there and make comments about rape and all kinds of ridiculous things. And then the second guy was Donnie Brown, and he was the one that said, you know, what do we want? Reparations, and we want it now. This, of course, would be beyond any budget in California. California is already, you know, close to, if not bankrupt. It already is losing people left and right because the state is so poorly managed and the state is so poorly handled, and it's so oppressive for anyone who works or tries to lead a decent life. The cities of California are falling apart. San Francisco's gone. San Francisco is gone as a great American city. If you love cities like I do, it could make you cry. This is, I mean, naturally, probably one of the most beautiful cities in America, if not the most beautiful. New York is the greatest, but I'd have to say that San Francisco is more beautiful. First time I went there as a 20-year-old, I guess at the time, I was just taken aback. I mean, I'd seen it on television many times, but to ride up and down those cable cars, and the hills are so high, and you look out on the bay, and to go out to Alcatraz and ride around the beautiful areas. I remember when I first played golf there. Gosh, I mean, just a beautiful, beautiful part of America. And then to go back there over the years, starting even before Willie Brown was the mayor. And as a mayor now being able to evaluate, I could see this coming even before Willie became the mayor. He was just a showboat. I mean, he just watched the whole thing go down. I'll give you an example. We were both on the cover of Newsweek, I think.
You together?
Yeah, as the two best mayors in America. I'd been in office for 5 years and had reduced crime more than any mayor in the history of the city and reduced welfare more than any person in America. He had just started and done it, not a damn thing.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, Obama getting the Peace Award before he started. I would think they'd want to change that cover right now. He doesn't belong on that cover with me. Sorry, Willie.
Of course not.
But you don't, because you didn't do a damn thing except ruin your city.
What he did was get himself elected mayor of a major city.
And did nothing to turn it around. He didn't, he's not, I would say, I'd say this about him. He held off the deterioration somewhat because he was a person of common sense, but he did nothing to really stop it because he didn't understand it.
Well, there's a reason
And
people
because
don't
of his approach to politics has nothing to do and is not at all similar to mine or to, well, I won't say much more. But we can thank him for Kamala, can't we? We can thank him for good.
There's a
old
lot we could say there, but yes, we definitely
We
can.
can definitely
Thank you.
thank him for good old Kamala.
Well, there's a reason, Mayor. Very few people outside San Francisco would even know who. I guess it depends on how you would.
It was
how you
Kamala's
ask it.
boyfriend.
But people wouldn't run. People don't know Willie Brown. When you think of the great mayors in American history, and I
But,
maybe
I'm sure Willie wouldn't talk to me now, but I used to get along with him pretty well when he was a mayor, even though I did find it kind of ridiculous that he was selected. I mean, there were a lot of other people that could have been selected for that.
for that
I mean,
profile. I'm
yeah,
trying to
I
think
mean,
of the time.
Richard Reardon
What about
might have been somebody that could have been picked. He was a good mayor.
Richard Daley.
Richard Reardon.
Okay. I know.
No, well,
I'm
could have-
naming mayors that I know as a
Yeah,
guy,
you
a
know-
kid growing up in the Midwest.
Yeah, okay, honestly, you could have picked Dick Daley, except for
Dick Daley. Interesting.
yeah, except for the he was a friend of mine. He also is one of the people I owe a great deal to. He helped me a lot after September 11. I would say of all the mayors, he was the most practically helpful mayor in America. I thought he was a very good mayor in many ways. There were things that I think I borrowed in watching them. I did from all mayors, but I thought there was one flaw that would prevent that, and that was his inability to get control of the crime, which no mayor in the history of Chicago has done for 55 years. It reminds me of this city until I came along, because crime went up under Lindsay and never went down. We went up over 1,000 murders, and we never went below 1,000 murders until I became the mayor. And now we're regularly, even with a lot of murders this year, we're at 500 or 600.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, there were 2,200 when I took over, and that was
Where were there when you left office? How many were there? Outside of 9/11, how many were there?
600. I took it down from 1,200, from 2,200 to 600, and then Bloomberg got it down to about 350.
That's funny because I associate that number with you too.
Well,
See, I mean, because obviously you're not a guy that's going to take all the credit, but Mayor Bloomberg.
Don't go there. Okay, Mayor Bloomberg gets the credit for what he did.
I was just gonna add that he benefited from coming into office.
He benefited from
that's all I'm saying.
Innovative, creative programs that we put into effect that nobody else has ever done before or after, and nobody else has had anywhere near the percentage reductions in crime that I had with my police commissioners and my great police department. But he also had the issue of, when you take crime down that much, you got to really work at innovative ways to continue the reduction. And he and Ray Kelly did a good job, and they deserve a lot of credit for it.
Of course.
Despite my political disagreements with Mayor Bloomberg today, but my continued admiration for what he did, and unabashed admiration for Ray Kelly, who I thought was a great police commissioner. It doesn't hurt that he went to the same college that I did.
And by the way, those Manhattan College
great
alumni,
college. You have any idea
together.
of how good teachers the Christian Brothers are? You don't, because you didn't have them.
Mayor, outside of New
You
York.
have no idea the great education that I got. You have no idea. And when I look now at Harvard and Yale and others, I got a better education.
Mayor, I think the people have an idea. The people that have been watching you for an hour every night for months now, I think they might have a little bit of an idea that you got a good education.
No, but
although you're saying it's a mix,
I got a great education.
Why don't we know Manhattan College outside of New York? I'm not trying to knock the school.
Because it's a school for a school for lower middle class kids, and it's taken many of them to tremendous. I mean, our greatest. Some of our greatest nuclear scientists come from Manhattan College. And Manhattan College had one of the best engineering programs in the country, and also many of the chief executives in the energy industry come from Manhattan College. And I mean, I found that out when I started doing security. It helped me a lot, get a lot of business. I found a lot of Manhattan Jaspers that knew me and admired me, and unlike the press today and the Biden people,
they're very proud of having you as an alumnus.
Oh my goodness,
they're very proud of that.
But I never failed to say that I wouldn't be who I am without the Christian Brothers. They're great teachers and they're great men. And for all the things that happened in the Catholic Church, I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that I never got a whiff of any of that craziness that, came out about Catholic priests. And I don't remember any situation of a brother that was predatory in any way. The only objection I had sometimes is they hit me a little too hard.
My dad talks about that. The nuns. He talks about that. He went to Catholic school growing up. He said there were nuns, and the nuns would hit you. They'd hit with a ruler.
Did he have brothers ever?
He had nuns. I'll have to ask him.
Ask him. I like the brothers better than the nuns. I thought they were kinder. I thought the nuns were, well, maybe the nuns I had, but they really hit you.
That's what my dad. No, my dad says that. The nun. You didn't. He tells me how lucky I had at going to school when
I mean, if you got hit by a brother, you got a good whack. It hurt, and you deserved it.
Yeah, that I could see
and
that.
You just took it.
You
deserved it.
Yep.
You got hit by a nun. Sometimes it was petty, and it was. Please don't get angry at me, nuns. I love nuns too. But I come away, and they're great teachers. Come on, my God! If we could have all those nuns again teaching our kids,
you don't really see them anymore.
Right to the top.
I don't see them anymore.
You have any idea of how the Catholic schools are outperforming the public schools now after the pandemic because they didn't close? It's like 20% better in every area. And they don't have the resources that the public schools have. They operate on a third of the budget. I mean, New York City spends $37,000.
That's a good point. In New York, you're saying there are a lot of Catholic schools and that sometimes when you say private Catholic school, people think Cranbrook. They think very high-end private schools.
There are two,
right?
There are Catholic schools like that.
Yeah.
There are a few very, very wealthy, high-end Catholic schools.
Yep.
And then there are Catholic schools that were built really for the Irish and Italian and Polish immigrants.
The kids.
And they were schools for poor kids. And they never had the resources of public schools. In the day of the great American public schools, they weren't as good. They were not as good. I mean, they made up for it with discipline. They made up for it with hard work, but they didn't have the quality textbooks. They didn't have the great gyms.
Some water.
They didn't have a lot of the things that public schools had. But then when you got to after the Second World War, and you got to the real infiltration of communism in the teachers union, and the teachers union brought our schools down, the Catholic schools now are much better than the public schools.
Oh, God.
And the charter schools
Nowadays.
The charter schools that are put together are much better. And the key to it is, it's really simple. Charter schools, Catholic schools are not run by the teachers union. That's it. I mean, I think it also helps that God is an integral part of the teaching in a Catholic school. I think that would apply also to Protestant parochial schools and yeshivas. And even if you're not the smartest kid and you don't catch the academic part as well, you certainly get a good moral education. You grow up with at least a set of rules of some kind that, you can't just do anything you want. You grow up with a tremendous amount of emphasis on trying to help other people. So you want to take some calls? Is that what you said?
Let's do one call
before we go and break for the holiday weekend. And let me just tell everybody, so when we break, we don't forget. Dr. Maria and I will be on Sunday live on WABCRadio.com between 10 and 11 on what is a really exciting program, unusual and exciting, uncovering the truth. Think you should watch it. It gets a tremendous audience. It's one of the biggest on Sunday, if not the biggest. And this Sunday, of course, my goodness, we've got to unravel the mountain of incriminating evidence against our president, which is making our country look crooked to the world because we're not doing anything about it. But we will. And Dr. Maria also has a couple of topics that she wants to bring up because of revelations that have been made about some of the dishonesty with regard to the pandemic. Then also you can catch up on this show and also on the podcast. This show you can get on any of these social media because it's on after we go off. It's on as a podcast. So I know a lot of people know that because we get about double the audience after we go off. But I would like other people to know that. I mean, if somebody wants to hear one they missed last week, just go on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Getter. What am I missing?
Twitter, YouTube, Rumble,
Twitch.
Getter, Twitch. We got to focus on Twitch. Well, we'll play with Twitch maybe this weekend, see what we can do.
But
Because
next week, I promise you, we're going to have Instagram up. Next week, we're going to have Instagram up. And
the mayor just made a promise, so we got to find a way to make sure we do it now.
I think I can. Well, no, I'm not going to announce the other one. The other one
We
is
have another bit. Oh, we have some
we got a big one coming up
big one.
that you're going to really like.
That's going to be a special announcement. We're going to want to have certain
we got a
people from
big
the
one- we
from
got a
them.
big one coming up, and until it's done, it isn't done. So we'll keep our notorious
But stay
big mouth
tuned
shut.
and stick with us because you will be able to say when this is a top show in America. You'll be those of you with us now will be able to say
You helped us
we were with
build
them
it
from the beginning.
You helped us go from the lowest audience we ever had was 8,000, and the highest was.
We're going to hit a million. We haven't hit a million yet, have we?
No, we had
800,000 about.
I don't think we hit a million. We hit 800,000. Yeah, we hit 675.
Let's take one call.
Okay, one call.
And now we are going to go to our friend. We heard from her last week, Olga in Cleveland.
Olga, how are you, dear?
Yes, topics are hot, getting hotter every day.
Hot topics.
Yeah. So what do you want
Well,
to talk about, Olga?
Yes, two things. First, just to historical note that Polish Constitution, happy 4th of July for America. And Polish Constitution was written in 1791, May 3rd. So I think we were second in the world or third. I'm not sure about that.
Oh, I think I know that. Yes. Right.
But that's interesting fact. But what I would like to mention about living in Cleveland for 40 years, about question to you actually, Mayor, and then if I may comment as well, our major city are occupied by Democratic, I would not say party, they are users. You have better name for it, but it is a slavery here.
We're talking about Chicago,
how
right?
Did it happen? How did it happen that never Republicans could cut through here? I understand there is white flight. I learned it early when I came to Cleveland in '80s.
Cleveland. Okay, I thought it was Chicago. Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Well, white flight was a phenomenon of, let me make sure I get this right, 50s, 60s.
Post World War II. I'm from Michigan, Detroit, Mayor. Yes, post World War II, people started moving out to the suburbs, right? The Levitt towns, the suburbs, these big suburban communities that became kind of the quintessential American dream.
Yeah, I mean,
the suburbs.
it's a little bit of a simplistic explanation and described as the one factor. It's not the one factor.
But what I'm saying, why never Republicans could cut through here? If I can just suggest my experience in '80s, I arrived in '81. It was like a perfect year when Reagan came to power. So it was perfect, the situation. But I heard always in Cleveland, those Republicans, always the propaganda existed. I had no idea was a Republican.
I know. They were the
Democrat.
party of the rich. They didn't care about poor people. All they cared about was big business.
All the time about Republican Party.
And they Nazis. They don't like people. They don't like Jewish people. They don't like black people. They don't even like
But
people.
it's so yes.
And
And
it was
also-
always a bunch of bull. You take the leaders of the party, Goldwater, Reagan. They're the least racist people you've ever met. And what they didn't agree with was communist dependency that was being imposed on black people, and and the Democrats made that the program that, you know, if you weren't for it, if you weren't for welfare and giving black people money and not creating any requirements for work or preserving the work ethic. If you weren't for that, then you were racist, even though your objection might be that no adult, mature, loving human being would do that. You wouldn't do that to your brother or sister. You wouldn't just give them handouts. You would give them a hand up. And but Democrats won that propaganda war because the press went with it, because the press is, been educated in Marxist universities that buys something. I mean, that's essentially a Marxist idea. And
that's very scary. And I just I see what you're saying exactly. Still deserted it. There's no Republicans in Cleveland or any city.
Well, we're going to change that. It's going to take a while, my dear, but we're going to change it. And with the help of somebody like you, who, I can describe this on an academic basis. I lived through it too, but in a somewhat different way. And of course, I had to absorb it all in order to turn New York City around, because New York City had the same problem. So the only way I could turn New York City around is to study its history in great detail. So what you're saying is absolutely certain, and I think I think you're really valuable because of your experience with communism. Because so many people have romantic views of communism.
A very important experience. I ran actually for city council.
Good for you.
In Cleveland in 2015. Just because, well, that's another story. Because I didn't understand what's going on, right? So I said, I better learn. So what I learned in the streets when I was knocking to doors, or I went to I was on the sidewalk in front of Cleveland municipal housing building, and people who lived there actually were walking out, black people, black Americans, meaning, they were telling me, you better go. They cannot see, councilmen cannot see that we're talking to you.
Huh.
I could not even, it was like a lightning. Mayor, I woke up. I said, oh my gosh, there's communists. There's no flowers in the back. It's sadness. They look like in the jail. Those housing is so sad, all of it. So just to let you know that I understand what's happening. And sometimes I think that when Trump came, and with all his, the way people don't like Trump, President Trump, or let's say Trump, right? The mannerism, what he does. But I think because of that,
yes,
he shed the light. We needed something like this. Exactly. That's what we needed.
Well, thank you. And you have a beautiful 4th of July. You deserve it. Like Abraham Lincoln said, the best American is not the one who's been here the longest. The best American is the one who understands American values the best. And you really understand them. May I say, you're a real patriot. God bless you. And happy 4th of July. And to all of you, happy 4th of July. We'll be back, as I said, on Sunday. I'll be on Monday between 3 and 4. We'll be doing a 4th of July show on radio. And we will do a 4th of July show at 8 o'clock is it Monday, the 4th of July, Ted?
Say that again, Mayor.
Is it Monday, the 4th of July?
The 4th of July will be Tuesday.
So we'll have a pre-4th of July show. And then on the 4th of July, we will show you legal fireworks.
So people that are going into an office Monday through Fridays, are they getting Monday and Tuesday off?
I think that's happening in a lot of places, yeah.
Mayor, do I get Monday and Tuesday off?
You don't get any days.
Well, we can't afford to take any time off, and the mayor keeps me.
We're trying to save America. We don't have any time.
We don't have any time to waste. That's right, Mayor. And what a great week where we like to end the week on a nice note. What would you like to share with our audience? I guess you may have already done that kind of big 4th of July weekend. Give us some closing thoughts.
No, I think what I would like to tell you is how beautiful it is here in New Hampshire, the live free or die state. And we spent some time between shows meeting with some of the people from New Hampshire, and it was quite a delight, wasn't it, Ted? I mean, they really do. They really do see. There are a lot of Americans who see the world the way we do, and we were really overwhelmed with them when we went and decided to walk around and just talk to people. And a lot of people who see the need for what has to happen, and we are laser focused on it, and we're going to keep you laser focused on it, and you're going to do that by going to RudyGiulianiCS.com, hit subscribe so you can get all the podcasts and everything else. And then you're going to go to Twitter, hit subscribe,
super follow,
and become a super follower so we can.
And thank you. We picked one up.
We want you to go to Kirk and give him a call. That would really help us. And we'd like you to go to mypillows.com/Rudy and order some stuff, even if it might come a little bit after the 4th of July.
And stay with us next week, a busy week. The mayor really wants to stress the importance of Independence Day. So join us. Maybe
each day we'll have a little patriotic theme.
Let's do that. And let's think of something for Monday. And we'll remind you over social media. But maybe for the show, let's have people, if you're for Monday and it's not the 4th, wear something patriotic, take a picture and send it to us on the direct messaging, whichever platform you're using. So Twitter, DM it to us. Facebook, send it over Facebook Messenger, so on and so forth. And we'll compile some of the best pictures we get. We'll put it on the air. How about that?
Sounds great to me. Okay. Thank you and have a great weekend. God bless the United States, and let's get ready for our birthday. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained by rational principles the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given